Hello everyone. I want to talk to you about 3 things that have shaped my beliefs as a school leader. But before I kick off, I'd like to thank a few people. I've been to many NAHT conferences in my time as a member, but I've never experienced anything like this. Today, I'm balancing the sadness that we cannot all be together in one room with the joy that technology means that I can speak to thousands more members than we ever thought possible as NAHT's president. So firstly, I would like to thank the staff at NAHT who have worked behind the scenes to make this webcast conference possible and to maintain the traditions and the democracy of NAHT. The events of the last few months have changed us all, changed the way we work, changed the kind of people we are, changed how we react to one another. All of that change has made it essential for members to lean on the support of this union. And I know that NAHT's advice policy and regional officers have been working overtime to provide that support. Thank you to all of them and to the volunteers as well in all of NAHT's branches. And finally, I would like to pay a special vote of thanks to my friend Judy Shaw, who served as president last year. Judy, you were an inspirational president. Even though the pandemic curtailed much of the work you were expecting to do towards the end of your presidential term, I'm glad that we retain your knowledge, common sense, compassion and dry humour on our national executive, and that you still have a role to play in your year as immediate past president. I hope that you are pleased to be back in school now, especially given the many challenges we are facing. Thank you, Judy. And welcome to Tim. It's not been the start that Tim would have expected either, but he has been a huge support since May, and I'd like to take the chance to thank you, Tim, as well for the work that you are doing, that you have done and continue to do for our organisation. As you know, it's the President's privilege to select a charity partner for the year. My charity is Diversity Role Models. Tolerance, respect and self-awareness are values that we want our pupils to learn and adopt from the very first moment they arrive in our schools. These values will help our learners to grow, to develop and mature safely into adulthood. NAHT would say that tolerance and respect are rights, not choices. We believe that inclusion is what successful, safe communities are about. Every day, young people make decisions about whether they want to stand out or to fit in. It can be a bewildering time. Every young person needs to know how it feels to be valued of equal worth. It can feel out of reach for many young people sometimes. Every young person has the right to feel proud of themselves, whatever their personal circumstances might be, whatever they hear and see in the world around them. And what a changing world it is. At times of change, it's good to hold fast to the things that we know. And what do we know as school leaders? That successful, effective and productive settings are built first and foremost not on data or frameworks or even reports, but on the sound core values of tolerance, respect and compassion. I make no apology for this focus. These are in no way soft measures. They are the key drivers of our core business. Right now, schools are increasingly becoming the last bastions of rights-respecting behaviours. If we don't model them, who will? How we behave towards each other and around each other determines the success of the communities we lead. Through their work in schools, diversity role models look to embed rights-respecting behaviours and values into the everyday life of the school. I have been hugely impressed and influenced by their work. I'm delighted that Diversity Role Models are NAHT's official charity partner this year. Of course, from diversity comes strength. Even though we're all different, we have so much in common. All of us lead schools, learning settings of one type or another. All of us know the joy of working with young people. All of us endure the seemingly endless to-do lists of leadership. And of course, the list keeps getting longer. The coronavirus pandemic is right at the top. It has never been a more challenging time to be a school leader. We are facing scenarios and situations that would have been unimaginable a year ago. None of us has any comparable experience to draw upon. All of us are making big calls on this for the first time. So what do we have to fall back on? Where do we find the courage and the energy to carry on? For me, it is simple: from one another and from the values that we share. Although we live in strange and uncertain times where everything is new, if anything, I feel that the pandemic has made me cling even more tightly to the values and beliefs I have acquired during my time in education. If anything, even though we are not physically together, the sense of togetherness that comes from our union membership is more evident and more valuable than ever. Thousands of us have gathered on webcasts of one kind or another during the pandemic. Questions have been raised and answers have been found. Stories have been shared, sympathy has been offered and empathy demonstrated. In short, thanks to our NAHT affiliation, none of us is alone. We can all draw strength from one another, and confidence too. Not that we'll always make the right call, but that we are afforded the space to learn. I'm hugely grateful for this. And occasionally, when that isn't enough, I know that my union is also where my friends are. Too often this job is a lonely one, no matter how strong your staff and leadership teams are. Ultimately, the only people who can truly empathise with the dilemmas that we face daily are others doing the same thing. For us all, it has surely been the most testing few months of our careers. With each decision has come new questions and new challenges, most of which fell outside our skills and knowledge base. But, and this is a really important but, we have stayed the course. As our governments have made U-turns and changed advice, offered the wrong advice, or sometimes just done nothing at all, we have stayed the course. And why have we managed this? Because we've kept our eye on the goal, on our core business, and we've been able to depend on one another for support. We feel our responsibility to learners keenly. We take it seriously, and through all the fear, exhaustion, confusion, and let's face it, at times utter despair, we've kept our eye fixed on the needs of the young people in our care. The tabloids may not have been always fair to us, and communities have sometimes been quick to judge. But ultimately, to whom have parents and families turned in their hour of need? It's been to you. You've literally held communities together, held them together at a time when so many of you will have been bogged down by your own personal circumstances, challenges and worries too. That is phenomenal work. Thank you. Thank you for all that you have done. One of the parts of my original speech covered the fact that NAHT represents leaders in all parts of the UK. 3 nations, 1 voice, if you like. In my view, NAHT's uniform approach across all 3 is what keeps members safe and secure. How ironic that we've seen such divergent approaches from Westminster, Cardiff and Stormont and elsewhere in the British Isles that have led to chaos in our education system as we try to rebuild the lives of young people following the pandemic. Our separate jurisdictions have all got it wrong at times, but in all this too, you've maintained a consistency of message and support. Trade unionism to some is an anachronism, but another irony of the modern world we face is that turning to the traditions and the original philosophies of the trade union movement could prove to be the most forward-thinking thing we can do. At their inception, trade unions offered their members routes to a greater sense of professionalism, agency and skill. NAHT has never lost sight of this, and of course the pandemic has got in the way of all the traditional means that we delivered training, development and support. As the saying goes though, every crisis presents an opportunity, which is why our new partnership with Discovery Education is so exciting. We have jointly created the Pathway programme, which we hope will completely transform the way leaders will receive professional development, support and advice. It's a 21st century take on a fundamental trade union tradition. You can become a member yourself, and if you do, your whole school leadership team could benefit. The Pathway message is simple. In order to properly invest in the development of their teams, school leaders must first invest in themselves. And so I'd like to say a few words about accountability. Successful school leadership is an art form, we know that. Successful leaders' greatest asset is the ability to think creatively and apply creative solutions. For too long, though, leadership has edged towards compliance management. Sadly, as a profession, I believe we are losing confidence in our own abilities. We have lost confidence in listening to and trusting our inner voice. Our inner voice so often brings our experience into play, as well as our individual personality. Often that inner voice is right, but sometimes it's wrong. And even when it's wrong, we learn, we grow, and our success becomes even richer. I strongly believe there is the need for us as school leaders to fall in love with the role again. We should remind ourselves of the strong ambitions that drew us to the post in the first place. We need to be bold about our capacity to not just deliver, but to grow as individuals as well. Of course, all of that is a tall order when trust from above is in such short supply. The various masters that we serve, and there are many audiences to which we have to submit ourselves, might do well to remember once in a while that creativity is stifled, sometimes critically so, where there is an overarching culture of low risk and high blame. National standards? Yes, but leaders need to be trusted. Trusted to think outside of the box sometimes, to make the sorts of decisions for their organisation that they know, and sometimes only they will know, to be the right ones. Because above all, good leaders know their schools and institutions. So why do we feel at times under pressure, and more worryingly, undervalued? In my view, it centres around the concept and practice of change. In my experience, 21st century schools and school leaders are anything but resistant to change. We manage it, work with it, and use it to maximise outcomes and opportunities by the youngsters we serve. And we do that by personal instinct and temperament, by an endeavouring commitment to a belief in the integrity of that once-in-a-lifetime chance. It is not the concept of change that perturbs us. It is not even the pace of change, overwhelming though it might sometimes feel. It is change which occurs without the necessary reasoning, consensus, planning, resourcing, evaluation, and the time to embed. Change without any of these features is not change at all. It is merely a series of externally imposed requirements. It is just one minister's preference overwriting the preferences of the person who sat in the chair before them. It becomes reactive rather than proactive. And school leaders across the UK want and need to be given the capacity and trust, alongside intelligent accountability, to bring about meaningful change, change that lasts, evolves, develops and transforms lives, and yes, raises standards along the way. Challenge, though, is an altogether different concept. Is it right to be challenged about our sometimes mistaken belief that schools across our three nations are as good as they can be? Absolutely. Is it right to focus on the core skills of literacy and numeracy, attempting to support them with appropriate frameworks? Yes, without question. Is it right for the Welsh, Northern Irish and Westminster governments to hold us to account? Of course it is. But accountability is crushing us. It's robbing us of the means to bring about real change. It's a brake rather than a rocket booster, and it has become a stick to beat us with rather than a helping hand to pull us up. Without the right support in place, a school seeking to improve will never achieve everything its leaders have in mind. You cannot inspect a school into greatness. Estyn, ETI and Ofsted would say otherwise, of course. And in Wales and Northern Ireland, at least they have backed off during the pandemic to allow school leaders the space they need to operate. In England, Ofsted would do well to follow suit. But from January, their proposal is to resume inspecting schools as if the pandemic has gone away. This is so short-sighted. It would be comical if it didn't have such potentially awful consequences. During the next few months, Ofsted has the power to do so much good. Instead, it is choosing to do harm. For a publicly funded body to ignore the views of school leaders, such considered and well-informed views, and press on with inspections is unforgivable. A moratorium on inspection this year across the whole of the UK is the right thing to do. In the interim, let's use the time to rebuild what we want and need from our accountability system so that it is ready to go as soon as schools are able to get back to operating in something like normal circumstances. In short, please, let us get on with the job. Trust us. You know who we are. We know that scrutiny is necessary. Just as our pupils want and deserve to feel like they have value and can play their part, so do we. We wish for the opportunity to be part of a dynamic partnership, government, region, business, parent, child, that delivers positive change for all. Of course, tell us when we go wrong, because we want to get it right for these young people. But partners properly commit to helping one another to make things better. They do not hang labels like failing or inadequate around each other's necks. In closing, let me say this. School leadership is a great role, but not an easy one. This is why we need the steady support of a trade union which knows and understands us. It might be the most challenging time to be a school leader, but for the same reason, it is a time where our country really needs us to be our best selves, to be on our A game, to be more like the people we wanted to be when we first signed up. We've considered what it means to be a 21st century school leader, but who knows what the ensuing months will bring. Undoubtedly, we are looking ahead to some even more challenging times as you face likely struggles to staff your schools in the event of individuals becoming unwell or displaying symptoms. There are likely to be local lockdowns which have the potential to raise even more concerns about equity of opportunity than the national lockdown did. You will find yourselves undoubtedly with an even greater funding gap than anticipated. You'll be required by families and communities you serve to come up with answers for problems we have not even encountered yet. And yet, I still believe that if we embrace diversity, truly embrace it, if we keep our sense of togetherness, if we show our compassion, and if we are trusted to do those things, then we will make it through. There are better days ahead. Thank you.